Today we're going to feature another pretty cool utility. You guys have really been liking those videos lately. Today we're going to talk about how to make a single drive as an installer for all of your ISOs. It could be for a bunch of different Linux distros if you want, different Windows install, different versions of Windows. And this could be really handy if you're building computers or you're constantly having to deal with different versions of operating systems. Instead of having multiple keys for each one, you're going to be able to have one particular drive that can have all of them on it. So there's different ways that you can utilize making drives for this. Typically, installers come on a USB drive. Now the problem with USB drives is they're just kind of inherently slow, and their failure rate is kind of high, especially if you're using them a lot, especially if you're installing operating systems and stuff on them. So the bare basic need right here is going to be a USB stick that's large enough to be able to hold your ISO or ISOs on there and be able to hold your drivers and stuff. Because the neat thing about the tool that we're going to use today is going to allow us to be able to use it as an installer, ISO installer for your different operating systems, but you get the full drives partition available so you can have other files and things on there. So let's say, for instance, you are building your small garage-based SI, building computers over and over and over, and you're constantly maybe working with the same motherboards or the same graphics cards, or you're constantly needing the same driver sets. So having full access to the drive for more than just a single ISO is actually really useful. Like for instance, if you took a 16 gigabyte drive and you put a Windows installer on there and you're only using 5 gigabytes of the entire drive, that sucks because you can't put anything else on the drive or it doesn't operate as a bootable USB installer, if you will. So the tool we're talking about today is actually called Ventoy, and it's one that was recommended to us by quite a few of our viewers when we talked about our Linux distro stuff. In fact, one of the guys that runs the Nabara distro, Glorious Egg Roll, commented on our video and said that this is a highly recommended utility, and it's not even just for Linux. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about Ventoy today, how to use it, how to take any drive, because that's the thing I forgot to mention. It could be a USB stick, it could be an external USB-C standalone thing. It could be this enclosure, which we threw an M.2 in there. It could be a external 2.5 inch drive, whatever. And the cool thing about using something like these drives rather than a USB stick is just, it's a lot faster to transfer the data both to the drive and from the drive onto the system. So let's go ahead and talk about what we gotta do to make this work. So we're gonna use a Windows 11 installer or ISO as an example. Obviously, any OS this will work for that runs specifically off an ISO. So you might be asking yourself, where the heck do you even get a Windows 11 ISO? Well, that's where handy dandy search comes in. Search Windows 11 ISO. And you can actually find it specifically on Microsoft's website. Download Windows 11, Microsoft.com. So this is where you can download the actual installer itself. And the cool thing is you don't even need a key or anything to make it work, because you can choose any version of Windows that you want to install. You just activate it by purchasing whatever key or acquiring whatever key, any way you want to get it, to make it work. So we're just going to use Windows as an example here, but obviously any of your OSs that run installers off ISOs are going to operate in the same fashion once we get to that portion there. So ignore the Windows 11 install assistant, ignore the create Windows 11 installation media. We want to get the ISO, which is just a disk image. That's all an ISO is. We don't want the program to install itself or whatever. So down here at the bottom, we're gonna select Windows 11 multi-edition ISO for x64 devices. Like I said, it contains all the versions of Windows. And then before downloading your ISO, you're gonna click confirm. It's validating our request. I'm assuming to make sure we're not a bot or something. And then we have to choose our region. I don't know, it wants to know where people are downloading this crap from. So where is United, there we go, English United States. Confirm, revalidating. The irony of the company that will steal all your information wanting to make sure you're not stealing theirs. So now that we've confirmed, we can download the 64-bit ISO. And depending on your internet connection, that'll take a bit. It's 5.4 gigabytes to download, and on our gigabit connection, it's gonna take approximately 8 minutes or so. So now we need to get Ventoy, which is the utility we're gonna use here. So ventoy.net, click on this. You can tell it's a little bit of an indie project just by the way the page looks. You can easily get lost in all this crap. So we're gonna go over here to downloads at the top, and then we're just gonna download the latest zip file right here. The Ventoy 1.1.05, that could change depending on when you're watching this video. But we're gonna download that. We're gonna click the green download button right here. We're gonna wait 5 seconds for it to start. They gotta make their money somehow, right? They gotta have their ads showing. So, and then we downloaded the Ventoy zip right there, and we're gonna extract that. Now, it is a zip file, so Windows should be able to automatically extract it. If it was a RAR file or something like that, you would need to use WinRAR or WinZip or something along those lines. But a regular zip file, you just right-click, extract all, choose a location where you want to extract it. For us, we're gonna put it on the desktop, and then you'll be good to go from there. So Here it is right here, Ventoy 1.1.5 Windows. Open this up. Now you're gonna see three executables in here for applications. We have Ventoy 2 disk, Ventoy plug son, and Ventoy v ink. I don't know what that is. We are gonna be using Ventoy 2 disk. So now we need to plug in our drive, make sure it's in a USB 3 slot, or if it's a USB-C on each end, make sure it's in a USB-C slot. You can see the folder is empty. It's important to make sure anything that's important on there is off the drive because it is going to format the drive when you create the Ventoy bootable disk. So make sure it's empty of anything that's important. We're gonna select our device. The Best Buy, because this is an Insignia, it's an Insignia external enclosure, so it just shows up as Best Buy. It's a 480 gigabyte drive in there. That is the drive we're gonna use. And you'll notice that's the only drive showing up. It seems kind of smart in noticing that it's an external drive, but if for some reason your internal drives are showing up, make sure you don't select that for obvious reasons. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to install Ventoy on that drive. So this is before we do any of the ISO moving or any of that, it has to prepare the drive. So now we're gonna click install. Yes, it's gonna be formatted. You have to double check yes. It's just very much redundant checking that you are sure you want to nuke everything on that drive. There we go. The drive is now, it's now been successfully installed on the drive. Now here's the thing. When you refresh the drive, it's still not gonna show anything. All it's done is prepare the drive to basically be like its own bootloader that's gonna come up with a boot menu that you can choose from any of the ISOs that are on the drive to say, I want you to load that ISO. So the drive looks completely normal. Like it looks like just a regular old drive where nothing special is on there, but now it's an important time to maybe mark this with a piece of tape or a Sharpie or something that says, I don't know, Ventoy ISOs or something like that. Because you can add and remove ISOs as you go. Just whatever ISO you drag and drop onto that drive is gonna automatically show up in a boot list when you load or boot off of that drive. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all 4 of these and I'm gonna transfer them right over to that drive. See, this is why having an external is so nice. Like we're transferring at 680 megabytes a second versus the 24 or so you get on this guy right here. So, all right, once that's done, we'll show you the next steps to boot off of that drive. Now there's a couple of things you need to keep in mind. Secure boot might present a problem for you. If it does, I'll put a link in the description below. There is a walkthrough on the Ventoy website, even with images and videos and stuff. It's gonna walk you through the steps of enrolling the secure boot key for this drive in your BIOS. Otherwise, when you try and boot off that, it's gonna give you a bunch of errors saying it's non-secure, blah, 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 and then it's just gonna kind of loop and maybe even just give you a black screen or may not work at all. And that's gonna be specifically because of the modern secure boot that is necessary in BIOS these days when it comes to UEFI BIOS and external drives and all that. Because it is seeing this as a bootable drive, therefore it must be secure boot when it comes to the operating system. So this particular system did give us a problem where we had to enable or enroll the secure boot key for it. The problem is once you enroll it, you can't really unenroll it, so we couldn't roll it back to show it to you guys on camera. So the best I can do is really kind of link for you down in the description below the help steps if you get stuck on that step. Okay, so our 4 ISOs are on the drive, 2 versions of Windows, 2 versions of Bazzite, 1 for AMD GPUs, 1 for NVIDIA GPUs. And now all we're gonna do is we are going to restart, or in this case, update and restart. We never just did. You know, we should probably do a video on Chris Titus's update thingy, huh? Okay, so this is an MSI motherboard, so the BIOS is a little bit basic and limited versus something like an Asus or even Gigabyte. So what we're gonna do here is we need to go to settings. Now, you would think you choose your boot override device in boot in MSI. No, you do that in save and exit on MSI. So we can boot override right here and we want to automatically See, the reason why we don't want to move that as a priority is that way if we leave this plugged in on accident and we restart our system, it's not just like automatically booting to that over and over and then we have to go to the BIOS and switch our order. So it's more important to let our installed bootloader for Windows partition on this system be the default device, and when we want to boot off of this drive, just go in and do an override. That's our preferred method. You can choose to do this however you want. But anyway, boot override right into this drive, and then here we go. So all it's gonna do now is say, which ISO do you want to load? So, and this is where it's pretty simple. So let's say we want to install Windows 11 24H2. And like I said, this is perfect if you're using a mass distributable ISO because you're an SI, a small SI or something, and you're buying bulk keys. to allow you to just use the same installer over and over and over and over again. And because of the size of that drive, you can also now have all your chipset drivers, all of your motherboard drivers on there, your graphics drivers, your network drivers, Wi-Fi, all that stuff for all the potential hardware that you're using on a single drive. Now, obviously, it's important to maybe have a backup of that drive too, because that's a lot of information on one drive that could set you back if something happens to that drive, you lose it, it gets damaged, corrupt, something. That way you can then just immediately be up and running. So this is something I think we're gonna do around here because we are constantly having to use our installer for obvious reasons. It'll be nice to have a single drive now that's allowed us to just continue building ISOs on here. And as we start playing around with more distros and stuff with the Linux, it'll just be nice to have them all in one place. Okay, so I'm just gonna do the Windows 11 ISO as if we're doing a friend install or customer install or whatever. Sorry, mouse, nope. Okay, so normal mode. And as you can see, now it's just as if we have a Windows installer sitting in there. So this is a very useful tool. It's free, and it's funny how projects like this that exist from indie developers make the billion-dollar or trillion-dollar companies or whatever they are these days, like just seem like they don't know what the hell they're doing. To be honest, this is. Thank God for stuff like this. All right, so I'll put the links down below. Hopefully this helps you guys. And this is, if you guys have any installers hanging around, this is the best way to handle them, I think, rather than having a bunch of USB sticks floating around. You can also always keep a current version of the ISO on here. So you saw, if we wanted to change that ISO and there's a new one available on, say, Windows, or there's newer versions of Linux or whatever, you can literally download the newest ones, just erase this one from the drive, put the new one on there, and now you've got an updated ISO, all on one drive. All right, guys, thanks for watching. These are tips and tricks that we're sharing with the community because you guys are sharing them with us and they are making our life easier, so we want to make yours easier. Thanks for watching. If you got a tech tip or any sort of a utility tip that you think we should be sharing with our audience, make sure you comment down below. We'll check it out, and if it's worth showing, we'll make it just like this.